How a humiliating family rejection sparked an incredible 3-year transformation with a man. I helped. Andrew's heart raced as he recalled the bitter words from his family, drowning the warmth they were supposed to provide. Teaching. Sit down, Andrew. You need to be realistic. Their dismissive notes echoed in the corners of his mind as he tightened the last bolt on the Chevrolet he had been repairing for days. The grease under his nails thickened with each turn of the wrench, a stark contrast to the chalk dust he yearned to feel on his fingers. For years, this garage had been his sanctuary, yet here he was, stuck in a life that confined him to a mechanic's bench rather than a teacher's podium. He had always envisioned a classroom buzzing with students eager to learn. But his dreams felt impractical next to the steady hum of engines. Who was he to think he could teach when his parents had decided his path was to fix cars, not inspire minds? The weight of their rejection served as a constant reminder that dreams were luxuries for those with the right connections. Yet, as he worked, Andrew couldn't quiet the whispered hopes in his heart, those voices that urged him to break free. Just then, fate stepped in when Michael, a disheveled figure in need of hope, wandered into the garage. Once a college professor, now a casualty of university cutbacks, he brought with him a storm of uncertainty that mirrored Andrew's own tempest of feelings. In Michael's empty eyes, Andrew saw a reflection of his own suppressed ambition, and unintended compassion compelled him to offer a job. What began as a simple arrangement evolved into a bond steeped in shared laughter and stories of what could have been teaching strategies from Michael, mingled with the rhythm of tools clanging in the garage. But every laugh, every shared sorrow burned sharp against an encroaching storm of financial worries. Bills piled up on the counter at home, each one a reminder of his meager income. How could he chase teaching dreams when he couldn't even secure his own livelihood? A gnawing anxiety crept in, filling the space that laughter once occupied. There was a moral dilemma gnawing at him. Was his ambition worthy when the risks felt insurmountable? The thought of failure loomed like a dark cloud over his aspirations, weighing down every ounce of hope he possessed. As Crescent Springs prepared for its annual summer picnic, Andrew felt a throbbing need to confront his family. He rehearsed his words, wanting to show them that chasing dreams wasn't a crime but a necessity. Yet, as he found himself on the brink of this confrontation, the dizzying pull of Michael's unexpected news unleashed a new wave of doubt. Michael had an opportunity to reclaim his job. Would Andrew's dreams be less valuable than the rekindled hopes of a man he thought needed him? Caught in a whirlpool of conflicting emotions, Andrew felt paralyzed. How could he step into that moment when the very support he relied on was on the verge of returning to a life lost? When darkness threatened to shroud his heart, he could only stare at the setting sun through the grimy garage window, allowing its brilliance to illuminate the shadows that danced around him. Would friendship be the fuel he needed, or just a gentle reminder of the fragility of dreams? As he grappled with his destiny, the tension reached a peak, and in that pivotal moment, Andrew realized, the stakes had never been higher. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the garage floor, mirroring the uncertainties twisting in Andrew's gut. He wiped the grease from his hands, the sensation grounding yet unnerving. This was where he had felt competent, but now it felt like a prison. With Michael's news fresh in his mind, Andrew found himself questioning everything he thought he knew. Did he truly want to remain in this garage, or could he muster the courage to pursue a teaching career that had always eluded him? Pacing the confines of the garage, he was trapped between two worlds: the reliable, comforting machinery of automotive repair and the unknown realm of teaching that sparked both excitement and fear. As tires rolled past on the street outside, the steady rhythm of life continued uninhibited, while his own internal struggle felt paralyzing. Maybe I should just support Michael, he thought, the burden of his ambitions growing heavier. Perhaps he deserves the chance to reclaim what he lost. But the deeper he dug into that reasoning, the more hollow it felt. Could he truly foster someone else's resurrection while burying his own dreams? A flicker of rebellion ignited in his chest. Just because his parents sought a traditional path for him didn't mean it was his destiny. What if he could blend his passion for teaching with the practicality of life in Crescent Springs? What if he could create a workshop that merged education and hands-on experience, empowering students who felt as lost as he often did? In that instant, inspiration surged. A plan took shape in his mind, a fusion of art and science, a curriculum that transformed automotive mechanics into a teaching platform for broader life skills. Andrew could give those in his community the chance to learn hands-on problem solving and critical thinking in a way that resonated with their realities. Yet a nagging doubt slithered back in. What if it fails? Echoed in the chambers of his mind. The stakes felt mountainous, each potential obstacle morphing into the familiar faces of his family, their judging eyes scrutinizing every decision he made. Clenching his fists, Andrew pushed aside the fear with a resolve that surprised him. The doubts had already crippled him long enough. It was time to step forward, take risks on this uncharted course. He needed to show his family that his life could redefine success. A whisper of hope called to him this could be more than a mere escape, it could change lives, including his own. As he stood in the garage now transformed, both physically and mentally, he felt a clarity emerge. He would have to bridge the gap between his current life and his aspirations, perhaps enlisting Michael's expertise not only as a friend but also as a collaborator. But how to approach him? Would Michael, so freshly gifted with his teaching opportunity, even be interested in building a new venture together? Determined to find out, Andrew grabbed a notepad, each scribble a step forward into the unknown, each line a pathway towards realization. He would illuminate the future. His family's doubt would not extinguish his fire. Just as he finished writing down his ideas, he heard a soft knock on the garage door. Startled, Andrew turned to see Michael standing there, an uncertain smile crossing his face. The look in his eyes mirrored Andrew's own apprehension. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly, the weight of the world evident in his voice. Andrew took a deep breath, sensing that whatever lay ahead in this conversation could cement or shatter his newfound direction. The moment hung heavily, as if time itself awaited the answer. He nodded slowly, ready to embrace whatever discussion awaited him, knowing that in facing Michael, he would also have to confront the pivotal crossroads of his own life. This was it, no more hesitating or questioning. The battle for his dreams had only just begun. As the door creaked open wider, Michael stepped into the garage, his demeanor a mix of nervousness and eagerness. The atmosphere buzzed with unspoken words, and Andrew quickly cleared the cluttered workbench, instinctively creating a more inviting space for their conversation. It was a small gesture, yet it felt monumental in the moment, as if every tool and oil stain represented the fractured ambitions he was fighting to piece together. "Hey, I've been thinking a lot," Michael began, his voice steady but laced with uncertainty. "About teaching, our plans, everything." Andrew's heart raced. Had Michael sensed the shift in his own aspirations? Did he intuit that this conversation wasn't just about Michael's teaching opportunity but also about Andrew's potential leap into a new life? "Yeah, me too," Andrew replied slowly, keeping his tone calm despite the storm within. The challenge now was to navigate this discussion without revealing his own burgeoning dreams just yet. As Michael shared his aspirations for the teaching position, Andrew listened intently, his mind racing to connect the dots between their conversations and the workshop idea that had begun to proliferate. "I feel like I'll never measure up," Michael confessed, an honesty illuminating the dim garage. "Everyone expects so much. What if I fail?" Andrew felt a pang of empathy, reflecting his own fears back at him. "You can't measure yourself by the standards others set. You'll innovate, inspire. You have to trust yourself." Saying those words grounded him. Maybe he was in this for more than just his own ambitions. "You really think so?" Michael looked at Andrew as if searching for affirmation. The depth of their friendship lay heavily in the air. This moment called for vulnerability, and Andrew's instincts nudged him to open up, to share the surge of plans and ideas nestled in his mind. "I've been thinking about creating a workshop," Andrew hesitated but pressed on. "Not just for cars, but for life skills. We teach kids practical trades, and how to think critically in real-world scenarios." Andrew's heart thundered in his chest, waiting for Michael's response. "Wow," Michael breathed, eyes wide. "That's incredible. You've always been good at teaching when it comes to mechanics." Suddenly, a spark ignited between them. In that moment, Andrew realized that this project could be just as much for himself as it was for the kids, crafting a space where genuine learning flourished. But what if it collapses? Andrew heard his own doubts echo back. "What if I'm just chasing a fantasy? Then we figure it out together," Michael said, a protective tone softening his words. "Just like we always have." The assurance in his voice strengthened Andrew's resolve. As the sun slipped lower on the horizon, Andrew saw his potential reflected in Michael's eyes. It was a beautiful, terrifying prospect, a leap into the unknown shared between friends. However, the path ahead felt perilous. What would his family think? The weight of tradition loomed large, and a sense of impending confrontation lingered. "I need to talk to my parents," he murmured, reluctant yet determined. "About the workshop?" Michael asked, concern etching his features. "Yeah. They need to understand why I'm doing this. I don't want to disappoint them." Andrew felt the internal battle reignite, a tug-of-war between soul-satisfying ambition and familial expectation. Then don't shy away. Present it to them. Show them the impact it could have. Michael's encouragement was like a breeze lifting the weight from Andrew's shoulders, and suddenly it didn't feel like just a struggle for personal validation. The stakes had been laid bare. It was no longer just his fear of failure, it was the chance to redefine success on his own terms. But as clarity began to take shape, the thought of facing his parents filled him with dread. As they finished discussing the logistics of a workshop, Andrew's heart beat with a mix of hope and anxiety. He felt buoyed by the potential of what lay ahead but cursed the looming confrontation that awaited him at home. "Are you ready for this?" Michael asked. "Ready or not, it's time to step up." Andrew's voice barely registered, yet the conviction within him was palpable. Tomorrow would hold the discussion that could change everything, his dreams versus their expectations. With resolve building inside him, Andrew closed the garage door behind them, leaving behind the sanctuary of his doubts, stepping into the world outside with Michael by his side. Little did he know, the reaction he received would be the true test of his transformation, for the scars of family rejection often cut deeper than any doubt of talent. Would the realm of dreams he envisioned withstand the storm of reality awaiting him? The morning sun filtered in through the kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of last night's uneaten dinner. The air was heavy with remnants of tension and unsaid words. Sitting at the table, Andrew felt as if the silence was a living entity, wrapping around him, amplifying his anxiety. Each tick of the clock resonated like a countdown to a final exam, and as he gripped the edge of the chair, he glimpsed his own reflection in the polished surface, a face both familiar and foreign, entangled in doubt. His parents entered, normalcy intact, but Andrew sensed the undercurrents of expectation washing over him like a tidal wave gathering force. He cleared his throat, rehearsed words swirling in his mind like fallen leaves caught in a storm. "Mom, Dad, I want to talk about something important," he started, his voice shaky yet resolute. The moment his mother looked up from her coffee, Andrew felt the weight of years laced with their dreams for him pressing down harder than ever. The path they envisioned was straightforward, but Andrew was determined to forge his own, even if it meant stepping into a realm of potential rejection. "What is it, honey?" "You know you can tell us anything," his mother replied, her tone filled with that familiar, fragile hope. Taking a deep breath, Andrew plunged in. "I've been thinking about starting a workshop focused on life skills, practical trades. It's something I'm really passionate about." He studied their faces, searching for understanding, hoping for joy rather than disappointment. His father's eyebrows knitted together. "A workshop? Is that really a solid plan? Teaching kids how to change oil and fix appliances, what's the market like? Do you have any funding?" The questions began to fly, each one feeling like a barrier put up against his dreams. "It's not just about fixing things," Andrew rushed to clarify, the weight of conviction adding gravity to his words. "It's about building confidence, teaching them to think for themselves in a world that tells them they should follow a certain path." The silence returned, thick and suffocating. Andrew felt his heart race. This wasn't just about the workshop, it was as if he was laying bare a part of his identity they had yet to truly witness. His mother reached across the table, her hand warm on his. "But Andrew, what if this fails? You have a good job lined up. It's secure." "Secure isn't the same as successful," Andrew heard himself retort, surprise blooming within him at the firmness of his words. They had fueled his dreams for years, yet here he was, daring to challenge those very expectations, finding strength in the unease. The ensuing silence felt like a dark cloud hovering over the table, casting shadows on his hopes. With every moment that passed, he he struggled to keep the tide of rejection at bay. It wasn't just the fear of their disapproval, it was the fear of disappointing himself, of forsaking the path he yearned to carve. "Is this what you truly want?" his father finally asked, yielding to the weight of Andrew's sincerity, as if sensing the pivotal nature of this moment. "Yes," Andrew answered, the single word a release, a declaration, but that answer elicited a different storm altogether. "Then what about your career? All those opportunities wasted for what, some workshop?" His father's incredulity was palpable, slicing deeper than Andrew had prepared for. "I don't see it as wasting anything. I want to do this not just for the kids, but for myself too." The realization hit him that the workshop wasn't a fallback, it was a stepping stone toward a more fulfilled life, where he could merge his skills and passion into one cohesive purpose. Andrew understood that he was stepping into a reaction that could tear them apart or bind him to his own truth. As the conversation veered dangerously close to conflict, his heart pounded, echoing the uncertainty of every decision he had yet to make. The walls felt like they were closing in around him. He needed to hold his ground but was met with expressions that mirrored disbelief and disappointment. As he gathered the final fragments of his argument, he became acutely aware that this moment could either break him or set him free. Would conviction prevail, or would their expectations throttle his burgeoning aspirations? As the clock ticked on, Andrew realized he was at a crossroad, the spotlight now on him, ready or not to take charge of his life, fueled by dreams that dared to collide with their fears. But as he prepared to voice his ultimate plea, a new tension tightened in his chest, echoing a simmering thought. What if their silence pushed him to prove himself not just to them but to the world? Andrew's eyes locked onto his parents, each heartbeat a reminder of the stakes involved. The moment had come to face not merely their criticisms but also his insecurities. Would he remain anchored in their expectations or cast off into the tidal wave of his own dreams? Andrew's heart raced as he sought the courage to voice his conviction. The ambience of the kitchen, colored by the morning light, shifted into a surreal realm where each detail intensified his mother's worried expression, his father's rigid posture, even the faint clinking of cutlery from the table. He felt unfathomably small yet inexplicably powerful, poised on the edge of a decision monumental enough to reroute his entire existence. "Mom, Dad," he began, his voice steadier now, bolstered by the urgency to dispel the tension. "This is more than just a workshop for me. It's about crafting a message showing young people that they can build their future with their own hands, develop their skills, and most importantly, believe in themselves." The silence that followed was almost deafening. Each passing second felt like an eternity, and Andrew wrestled with a mixture of fear and determination. He noticed the lines on his father's forehead deepen as he grappled with disbelief. Andrew realized that their hesitation wasn't merely about the practicality of his idea. It represented years of cultivating a safe, static existence which they believed was synonymous with success. "What do you think you'll actually teach them, Andrew?" his father finally said, his tone laced with skepticism. "How do you plan to make it worthwhile for them? Just throwing some tools around doesn't equate to a solid educational foundation." Each word that left his father's mouth felt heavy, a weight anchoring Andrew's convictions. Yet, something shifted within him. The once foreboding weight of expectations became a crucible. "You know," he responded slowly, deciding to embrace the discomfort, "I'm not trying to replicate the traditional education system. I want to connect with these kids, engage them in hands-on work, teach them to be problem solvers. I want to foster their creative thinking, teach them that failure is not something to fear but a step toward mastery." He could sense the simmering incredulity in his father's glare. Andrew's heart hammered as he realized that this moment wasn't just about presentation, it was about standing firm in his truth, a truth forged in the fires of doubt. He had spent countless hours sketching plans, drafting syllabi, and visualizing his workshop. This was his opportunity to share that vision, to light a spark, not just in the hearts of potential students, but within himself. Suddenly, the prospect of failure loomed larger than before, and with it came a torrent of self-reflection. What if he didn't succeed? What if his parents turned away, irrevocably disappointed? But deep inside, he instinctively knew that he was not only seeking their approval, he was fighting for his authenticity. "I've mapped out a business plan," he pressed on, the words spilling forth with renewed vigor. "I believe I can secure funding through local grants and sponsorships. I want this to be a community-driven initiative. Community-driven? His mother interjected softly, breaking her silence. Honey, it sounds like a lovely idea, but have you considered the risks? What if it doesn't work out? Would you leave a secure job for something so uncertain? Anger flared momentarily within Andrew, not at his mother, but at the doubts that plagued him. Flashing back to his 6 weeks of diving headfirst into the logistics of his plan, he fought to maintain composure. What if it does work out? He countered, his voice lowering yet retaining its intensity. What if this workshop becomes a safe space for kids who feel lost? What if I can help them discover their passions? Isn't it worth the risk to try? That question hung heavily in the air, hanging between dreams and the harshness of reality. Andrew's mind raced through countless scenarios emerging from the shadows of his parents' expectations, stepping out into the light of possibility he envisioned. Would his dream transform their collective fear into faith? After all, fear was merely an obstacle waiting to be surpassed. To his astonishment, he noticed his father's posture shifting slightly, a subtle hint of contemplation was etched on his features. Andrew seized on this moment, leaning forward, urgency crackling in the space between them. If I fail, he said, leaning into the honesty of his vulnerability, I want to fail trying something that matters to me, not just playing it safe in a job that leaves me unfulfilled. Just as hope began to flicker in his heart, a sudden pang of doubt made him falter. What if even his best efforts were not enough? The question lingered, thick in the air, as uncertainty twined itself around his thoughts. His parents, though silent, watched him closely, and Andrew prepared himself for the rocky terrain that lay ahead. The moment was pivotal, yet the future remained as foggy as the past. With renewed determination deep within him, Andrew stood at the edge of transformation. How far would he travel before stumbling upon the breakthrough he so desperately sought? The questions gnawed at him, the pendulum swung. Taking a breath, he braced himself for their response, knowing that whatever happened next could either cement his path or derail it completely. Andrew's breath caught in his throat as he felt the quiet pulse of anticipation in the air. The weight of his parents' expectations bore down on him, but somewhere deep within, the flicker of hope clashed against a tide of fear. Their expressions were unreadable, leaving Andrew to wonder if he had delved too deeply into uncharted waters. Andrew, his father started, the hesitation hanging heavily. Andrew's heart pounded. Each heartbeat seemed to echo the uncertainty deep within. He found himself grappling not only with the reality of their potential rejection but also with a feeling of diminished self-worth that threatened to envelop him. Was the path he had chosen truly viable, or merely a whimsical notion fed by daydreams? Yes, Dad. He responded, his voice a timid thread amidst a storm of thoughts. Andrew realized he was clenching his fists, and he released his grip, forcing himself to embrace vulnerability. This was about more than just his workshop, it was a testament to his identity. I don't want you to fail, his father finally said, his tone softer but still laced with concern. What if things don't go according to plan? You have so much potential. Why gamble it all on something so unpredictable? Andrew swallowed hard, battling the instinctive hurt that seeped through his resolve. The implication was clear, their concern stemmed from love, but they felt like chains wrapped tightly around his aspirations. In that moment, he understood something essential about himself, a realization that tore through his resistance with searing clarity. Maybe, he began, mind racing to articulate the essence of his feelings, this risk is a part of what I have to do. Failure, or even disappointment, might teach me things I wouldn't learn otherwise. I want to do something that excites me, something that builds me into the man I want to be. His mother's eyes sparkled with unshed tears, and for the first time, he saw acknowledgement flicker behind her worried demeanor. The conversation was no longer adversarial, it was an invitation to self-discovery, even if it felt precarious. Do you really believe that? She asked, her voice quavering slightly, as if unsure whether to embrace his conviction or remain grounded in reality. Yes, Andrew affirmed, the strength of his voice surprising him. I need to find out where my passion leads me. Isn't that how people grow? Before their reaction could unfold, a rush of determination propelled Andrew forward in his mind. A vision of the workshop filled him with a vivid clarity. Students, young, eyes bright with possibility, assembling ideas into tangible projects. He could see the sparks igniting their enthusiasm, see failure transform into stepping stones. Fingers trembling slightly, Andrew reached out and spread his sketches across the table. Look here, I've planned activities. I want to help them create, troubleshoot, and innovate. This isn't just about teaching, it's about fostering change. I've mapped everything, supplies, timelines, even potential collaborations with local artisans. His voice gained momentum as he described the intricate layers of his project, each word building bridges between fear and faith. During that moment, Andrew witnessed the walls of skepticism slowly receding in his parents' eyes. Their expressions softened as curiosity replaced doubt. Perhaps they began to glimpse his vision, but just as a note of hope began to fill the space, Andrew felt the reverberation of a new realization. The doubts he faced were woven tightly into the very fabric of his identity. A familial legacy of caution and expectations threatened to choke the life out of his ambitions. He pondered whether he was brave enough to challenge that legacy. The questions surged within him, spinning webs of consciousness that intertwined anxiety with possibility. How much of his life had been dictated by their expectations? If this journey was to be truly his, how deeply was he willing to venture into uncharted territory? At that moment, Andrew realized that he faced not just potential rejection from his parents but a confrontation with his own fears about stepping away from the familiar. The stakes felt higher than ever, as the internal conflict burned, but in the midst of it, sparks of determination ignited. As they lingered over his sketches, Andrew sensed that the dialogue was shifting from mere disbelief to cautious hope. It was then that the gnawing need for acceptance morphed into an urgent desire for authenticity. He took a deep breath, the tension surrounding them coiling into a tight, hopeful string. It would take courage to leap into the unknown, and he was now prepared to take that risk. Okay, he said finally, resolutely. I'll prove to you that this is worth pursuing. I can build something incredible, not just for myself, but for the students waiting for someone to believe in them. Yet, behind his conviction lay a nagging fear. What if he couldn't pull it off? What if this initiative became a hollow failure? There lay ahead a fork in the road, a decision that would shape not only his future but intertwine the fate of his family's perception of him forever. Before he could dwell too long on that uncertainty, Andrew felt alive with purpose. He was ready to brace for the challenge, ready to challenge his fears in a bid to forge his path. What would the next step entail when faced with the reality of executing his vision? As he gazed into the landscape of possibilities ahead, the sense of impending transformation closed in around him, a stirring reminder that his journey had only just begun. The following week began with an electric charge in the air, a blend of anticipation and desperation that set the tone for Andrew's immersion into this new chapter of his life. Armed with his sketches and a newfound determination, he resolved to approach the community center to secure a space for the workshop. Each step toward the building fueled his eagerness, but fear simmered beneath his surface, whispering doubts that had taken too long to silence. As he walked through the glass doors, Andrew felt a tightening in his chest. The center was buzzing with activity, with kids' laughter echoing in the hall and adults chatting animatedly. Here amidst their chatter, Andrew sought his place. His passion felt like a beacon in a sea of uncertainty. He approached the front desk, heart racing. I'm here to discuss the possibility of hosting a workshop, he said, his voice steadier than he felt. The receptionist looked up from her computer, skepticism written across her features. A workshop? What makes you think we could accommodate that? Andrew hesitated, searching for the right words to differentiate himself amid doubt. I plan to offer hands-on experiences that encourage creativity. It's about teaching skills, but also about empowerment, helping kids express themselves through making. The receptionist remained stone-faced, forcing Andrew to dig deeper. What did she need to hear? He needed to remember that his enthusiasm was the key. I've prepared a detailed proposal that outlines activities and objectives. I believe it could fill a gap that many kids experience. As he spoke, Andrew noticed her attention gradually shifting towards his earnestness. He pulled out his sketches, colors and shapes reflecting ideas that seemed to leap from the page. It was as if the very essence of his vision was captured in those drawings, and for a fleeting moment, he could almost feel her curiosity peaking. A workshop for creative skills? she repeated, examining the sketches as if they were an artifact from a lost civilization. It's about problem solving and critical thinking too, he added, feeling the flames of conviction ignite within him. It's about showing kids how failure is just a stepping stone toward success, not a dead end. He held his breath, hoping she could envision what he saw, a brighter future for the youth in their community. The receptionist took a moment, her fingers pausing over the keyboard. All right, you can submit your proposal through email. But our schedule is tight. If it works out, then we might be able to fit you in next month. Relief washed over Andrew. It wasn't the green light he yearned for, but it was a step forward, tangible proof that he was breaking through the surface of his dream. He felt a surge of confidence as he left the building, an exhilarating taste of self-efficacy, yet, beneath the satisfaction lingered disquieting thoughts. Would the proposal land well with the board? Would parents trust him with their children? What if his past experiences led to no more than a series of frustrated efforts? Andrew's journey toward emotional resilience felt relentless. Each encounter tested him, but he remained steadfast in his desire to leave his comfort zone. He couldn't let his family's reservations creep back in, and he began to understand that growth often thrived in discomfort. Days turned into weeks as Andrew spun increasingly intricate plans and research on teaching methodologies, reaching out to local artisans to forge potential collaborations. He felt his understanding of the educational landscape deepening. Each step fortified his skills and ignited a fire within him. Yet, with that excitement came overwhelming pressure. This venture had to succeed, or risk reinforcing the skepticism he faced from his family. When he finally sat down to compose his proposal, words flowed as if they were an extension of his soul. He poured his heart into it, mapping out the ideas meticulously. By the time he hit send, he felt drained. Would this next move transform fear into validation, or would it merely deepen doubt? As the mail dinged in his inbox moments later, Andrew's heart raced once more. Had he received a response already? He navigated the screen, only to find a message confirming receipt, with further deliberations expected in days. And then came a storm of thoughts racing through his mind. This moment, however small, would set the stage for everything that followed. Was he ready for what lay ahead? Andrew glanced at the sketches he'd left on the table, musing whether they encapsulated the journey thus far or merely a prologue to a struggle ahead. The looming uncertainty remained a daunting reminder of how deeply intertwined his ambitions were with his identity. He took another deep breath, resolved to channel his nervous energy into preparation. He was stepping into the unknown every single day. But the question repeated its sinister refrain: could he truly make this a reality? Despite the winds of doubt surrounding him, with his heart pounding, Andrew knew the answer would come sooner than he thought. He had chosen this path, and he was ready to face whatever it threw at him. As he checked the calendar for the upcoming weeks, he found himself grappling with one pressing thought: what would happen when the board's decision would ultimately reflect the heart of his endeavors? In the following days, Andrew found himself oscillating between determination and anxiety. The waiting, in many ways, felt more daunting than the actual proposal submission. Each moment stretched into eternity as he fought off self-doubt, replaying his pitch in his mind. Had he truly conveyed the depth of his vision? Had he adequately captured the needs of the community? In an attempt to find clarity, Andrew immersed himself in his sketches, each stroke of pencil and splash of color an effort to channel his anxiety into creativity. Yet, as he worked, he felt an unsettling emptiness shrouding the joy that had once accompanied art. His sketches began to reflect his inner turmoil, symbols of uncertainty rather than innovation. And with each passing day without a response, that unsettling feeling mutated into a chorus of doubts echoing louder in his mind. The subsequent week brought yet another reminder of his familial skepticism. At a dinner gathering, Andrew's aspirations took form when he shared his ambitions with his parents. The comment was met with somewhat curt laughter filtered through a wall of skepticism. "It's all dream talk, Andrew. You need a real job," his father remarked, distilling years of effort into one dismissive comment. In that instant, Andrew felt the wind knocked out of him. The familial dismissal sliced deeper than any corporate critique. The judgment of loved ones had a unique potency. Retreating into the recess of his thoughts, he grappled with the dichotomy of wanting their approval while desperately pursuing his path. Their words ignited a fire, a wrath directed inward, as if he had betrayed them by daring to dream differently. That night, unable to sleep, Andrew sat in front of his laptop, dawn's muted light filtering through his window. Suddenly, a notification pinged, an email from the center. His heart raced as he opened it, fingers trembling with anticipation. The message described a meeting scheduled for the next day with the board to discuss the proposal in greater detail. Relief flooded through him, but it was quickly chased away by a surge of nerves. This was the chance to validate his aspirations not just to the board, but to himself and his family. As he prepared for the meeting, he made a conscious effort to distinguish between the healthy drive for success and the toxic weight of external expectations. He spent hours selecting words not just to address the board, but to counter that unshakable feeling that he was an imposter, someone who didn't genuinely belong in the role he envisioned for himself. The next morning found him in a better mental space, albeit still tethered to anxiety. As the hour approached, Andrew experienced a peculiar mix of clarity and obsession he envisioned every moment, from the greeting to the presentation, and even to the questions he anticipated. With a focused mind, he worked on articulating how his approach transcended a typical workshop. It was a transformational experience. Once in the conference room, standing before the panel, he surrendered insecurities to the shadows. In that moment, he didn't see the board as critics, but potential partners in a venture that could cultivate future generations. The words flowed, and his passion ignited with each explanation. He felt empowered, finally embracing that unyielding urge within him. The board members listened, their faces inscrutable, but Andrew felt a connection building, a mingling of shared purpose that ignited hope within him. Completing his presentation, he left with a mixture of exhilaration and dread, awaiting their feedback. Days passed, dragging on like an eternity. The specter of his family's skepticism loomed larger, accompanied by a new wave of introspection. Had he poured everything into the presentation? Was his dream still worth pursuing, even if it didn't resonate with those closest to him? On a seemingly ordinary afternoon, as he returned home, an envelope caught his eye. Addressed in formal lettering, it bore the logo of the center. The tremor in his hands as he tore it open felt electric, a touch of hope intertwined with pure anxiety. In that moment, he understood something vital. No matter the outcome, every effort would carve out a new part of himself. Could this response mean validation for not just his proposal, but his renewed identity? Andrew steeled himself, ready to confront whatever decision lay within those pages. As he unfolded the letter, his breath caught. He was about to unveil the next chapter of his life. The letter unfolded slowly, as if time itself was hesitant to reveal what lay within. Andrew's heartbeat quickened, a drumroll of anticipation ringing in his ears. The words swam before his eyes, blurring reality and filtering through the ever-growing fog of his doubts. There, in crisp black ink, the board expressed both gratitude and interest, inviting him to discuss next steps. Euphoria washed over him, solidifying into a palpable sense of purpose, yet with the thrill came a familiar weight. What if this opportunity slipped away? The thought dug into his core, reigniting the fear of inadequacy he had fought so hard to navigate. Standing on the precipice of a breakthrough, Andrew began to question not only the potential of this project but also his own worthiness. Was he merely riding the wave of encouragement, or did he truly deserve the chance to spearhead this venture? The following days became a delicate balance of fervent preparation and incessant self-reflection. Every moment spent drafting ideas and notes brought a renewed sense of hope, but as he reviewed past failures, the hesitation he faced when approaching the board, the laughter of disbelief from his family reflection turned into an agonizing internal monologue. Each sketch, once a source of liberation, now became an interrogation of his past choices. Had he been too ambitious? To ground himself, Andrew sought to break free from the whirlwind of his thoughts. He returned to his sketch pad, transforming it into a safe harbor. As his pencil moved across the page, figures morphed into powerful symbols, possibilities not punishments, narratives not failures. Art, he recognized, was more than an escape, it was the tool he wielded to manifest his vision. Then came the day of reckoning. The meeting with the board loomed once more, but this time, the air thrummed with an electric expectation. Andrew arrived early, trying to project confidence while packing a substantial arsenal of ideas and counterarguments. This time, he would speak not just to defend his project but to assert his place. No longer was he just Andrew, he was an innovator, a creator poised for change. As he stepped into the boardroom, he recognized the tough faces some deemed as antagonists, illuminating the need for clarity and assertiveness. He had to exude both passion and mastery, engaging his audience in dialogue rather than monologue. Each question posed by the board members sparked an invigorating call-and-response dynamic, drawing him deeper into the conversation rather than pushing him into a defensive corner. It was a delicate dance, and for the first time, Andrew led, yet, amidst the intensity of the moment, his mind spiraled back to his family's dismissive laughter. It served as a bitter reminder that this path lacked immediate approval from those he cared for most. But in that realization, he also found an illuminating truth: the intrinsic worth of his ambition was independent of their validation. Every decision echoed into the realm of personal growth, every struggle was a step toward forging a unique identity. When the meeting concluded, something unusual settled within him. Instead of the familiar post-presentation spiral of second-guessing, he embraced the uncertainty with open arms. He had shared a piece of himself, and regardless of the outcome, he had reclaimed that lost enthusiasm that had once been the cradle of his artistry. As he left the boardroom, a newfound confidence surged through him, but there lingered an unanswered question: could he truly reconcile his aspirations with the judgment of his loved ones? With determination etched into his consciousness, Andrew faced the spring sun shining beyond the building, ready to confront the next chapter of his journey not just as a seeker of approval, but as an architect of his own destiny. What did this affirmation of his identity mean for the path ahead? Andrew set out to discover if he could transform not just his work, but also the perceptions that shaped his family's understanding of him. Could he bridge the chasm between his evolving self and their fixed beliefs? The air was electric as Andrew stood in front of an old, repurposed classroom space, the new home for his workshop. A few weeks had passed since he had defended his proposal to the board, and today marked the culmination of years of struggle. Following the meeting, Andrew had received the news he had dreamed of. The board wholeheartedly supported his vision. They believed in his ability to engage the community and facilitate transformative learning experiences. Finally, he was poised to present his integrated workshop, a mix of life skills, automotive mechanics, critical thinking, and creativity. It felt surreal to look around the room, now brightened with banners and tables holding tools, plans, and instructional materials that spoke of new beginnings. This was not just a physical space, it was a sanctuary for the very dreams that his family had failed to recognize. His heart swelled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the journey, the rejection, the partnership with Michael, and the countless nights spent refining his plans. All of it had led him here. This workshop wasn't just about imparting knowledge, it was about nurturing self-belief among those who might struggle to find it. As the first group of students trickled in, Andrew felt an unfurling in his chest. Their faces reflected curiosity and a hint of skepticism, much like his own when he had first envisioned this venture. With each handshake and warm greeting, Andrew tore down the invisible walls he had once built around his aspirations. He had conquered the fears of judgment and disappointment. Now, he was determined to empower these young minds to do the same. The workshop began. Andrew's enthusiasm radiated through each lesson as he connected practical skills with larger life lessons. He taught them how to change oil but also explored the metaphorical implications of failure, encouraging them to see mistakes as stepping stones. Each project completed, every idea sparked, was like a brick laid in the foundation of their self-confidence. While they worked, Andrew shared his own story, how each failure had taught him resilience. He witnessed a transformation in their eyes. Each tentative stroke with a wrench became a dialogue, a defining moment where doubt was exchanged for trust in their abilities. Students grew bolder, experimenting and pushing boundaries, while Andrew found in this environment his own voice, a voice that celebrated not just success but the beauty of learning from setbacks. Gradually, the classroom buzzed with laughter and conversation, echoing his vision of a vibrant, collaborative learning space. The students were no longer just participants, they were co-creators in this learning journey. Andrew could see the flickers of understanding blossoming as they engaged with the material, not as passive learners but as active architects of their futures. That evening, Andrew felt a wave of satisfaction as he reflected on the day. The workshop had not only thrived, it had transcended into something beyond his expectations. The triumph didn't lay solely in the success of the curriculum but in the validation of his journey. The steps he had taken toward authentic living were now rippling out into the community. When he returned home, the familiar tension greeted him, much like it had in the past. His parents were gathered around the kitchen table, and as he entered, their eyes flickered with curiosity. It had always been his hope to show them the true meaning of success, not defined by traditional careers but by the impact one could have on others. "So, how did it go?" his father asked cautiously. With confidence, Andrew shared the highlights of the day: the laughter, the learning, and the unfiltered joy that surrounded the experiences he had created. He spoke of the students' breakthroughs, weaving narratives of growth and problem-solving that echoed the very lessons he had personally fought so hard to embrace. His parents listened intently, their expressions softening as they registered the fervor and purpose in Andrew's voice. It was not just a workshop, it was a vision coming to life, one that aligned with his passion and aspirations. For the first time, Andrew saw their guarded expressions shift toward pride. The smiles that slowly crept onto their faces ignited warmth within him. Something had changed. It felt as if a bridge had been built between his world and theirs, his truth intertwining with their understanding. "Son, it sounds like you've really made this work," his mother said with the sincerity that had long eluded their conversations. "We're proud of you for pursuing something meaningful." Andrew's heart swelled with gratitude, recognizing that their acceptance, once overshadowed by disbelief, had finally blossomed into acknowledgement. He felt liberated, not just for the achievements he had displayed, but for redefining success through his authentic expression. He had created a pathway for both himself and his family to reconcile their hopes and dreams. In that moment, Andrew knew he had arrived not merely at a destination, but in a space of solid confidence and recognized competence. He had conquered self-doubt and woven his truth into the fabric of his community, aligning his ambitions with heartfelt purpose. This was not just his success, it was a testament to transformation and the power of creation. As the sun dipped lower beyond the horizon, Andrew reflected on how far he had come. The rejection had sparked an incredible journey toward a life fully embraced. The workshop had become a thriving reality, illuminating lives while simultaneously honing his own. The peace that enveloped him was palpable and profound. Each element of his personal achievements had culminated in a definitive statement of who he was. He marveled at the realization that indeed, dreams forged through passion and dedication could shatter expectations and transcend the ordinary into the extraordinary. This was the moment when everything crystallized. Andrew had not just found his vocation, he had unlocked a life of purpose, and with it, the power to ignite the hearts of others. In this vibrant new chapter, Andrew stood as a beacon of hope, ready to inspire not just his students, but to mirror the very message he had fought for. It is our journey of growth, our courageous steps toward authenticity, the true essence of an American dream. Now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for these powerful narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this remarkable transformation. Don't wait even one more second to uplift someone else with a story of personal overcoming.